So I'm sure you would love to hear from these three people who are actually working on the ground on the subject that we are going to talk about. But before that, let me share a very short story with all of you. Recently, I had the chance to meet one of very leading philanthropists of our times, Dr. Kiran Patel. I met him in Florida, and he shared a very nice story about his childhood when he was growing up in Zambia. He said that he used to get a shilling a day as pocket money. He would go to school and he would see his younger brother, his friends buying soda, snacks. He never spent the money on that. What he did was put the money in a piggy bank every day and held his temptation to buy those drinks and other things. And after a couple of years, he managed to save so much that they were able to buy the ship fare then for the entire Patel family after 2 years. And that story he was telling me on his private jet. So it was so surreal, you know, and I asked him, so what's your philosophy? He says, put your money where the impact is maximum. And that, in a way, is the theme of our discussion here, charity versus smart philanthropy. Because in India, as many of you know, the tradition has been to donate towards temples, community festivals, but the real smart philanthropy that we are talking about is the new emerging trend. So I would start with, to my left, and Jane, if you could tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, and then again, we could pass on the microphone.
Very good. Thank you very much, Brajesh. It's a delight to be here, and I thank American Bazaar for the invitation. I'm a law professor, formerly headed the Fulbright Commission in India, and I've lived 14 years in India. The last 5 years that I lived there, from 2011 to 2016, I headed the SM Sehgal Foundation. I was CEO. So my perspective on India comes primarily from that. SM Sehgal Foundation believes in community-led rural development and works in the area of water, agriculture, and good governance. The organization helped found a community radio station and networks with other community radio stations. In addition, there's a research team. So in addition to the grassroots work, there is impact assessment by the organization. And it's working in Haryana, Rajasthan, Bihar, Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh. In terms of why is India a good destination, do you want to get into that already?
Yes,
okay.
I mean, briefly, and then we could pass it
Sure,
on, and then
absolutely.
We'll come back
So,
could you hold it a bit closer to the microphone?
closer,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that's what I was told by the
All right.
engineers.
Very
So,
good.
yeah.
India is a good destination for smart philanthropy. I think everywhere is a good destination for smart philanthropy, first of all, as opposed to a traditional charity. Traditional charity still has a really important place, especially in disasters. I mean, we've seen a series of disasters lately. There has to be immediate response to that. But in terms of helping people help themselves in the long run, the empowerment of people, smart philanthropy focuses on that. So it used to be, we used to talk about giving a person a fish or teaching them how to fish. I think we're at a third step, which is talk with people about what needs to be done in the community. Maybe it's not fishing at all, you know. So it's that engagement with communities to empower them, which brings respect for the people and respect by the people intervening, respect by the government officials. So I'll stop there, but be happy to come back to it.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This mic feels a little intimidating. I'm Angelina Klouthis, and I'm the executive director of the Vicente Ferrer Foundation. We have our principal office located in Anantapur, which is in Andhra Pradesh. Our India office has been around for about 50 years, But our US office is a baby, and I have actually just launched the US office about 2 years ago. Arguably, in the room, I'm probably the newest person to India, although I have a variety of experience working in development projects across Latin America and the Caribbean. India's new for me, and I first started working in India 2 years ago when I opened up our first ever US office. And I was immediately attracted to the idea to work with India. They didn't really have to do much to headhunt me because the opportunity to add scale when you work in Latin America or on an island, in the Caribbean, you're not able to have the same kind of numbers of impact. And so I think people like me, investors, corporations, are really interested in this ability to kind of have this instant million as an outcome. And so that's why I think today it's an interesting opportunity to talk about corporate philanthropy in India, because many corporations, they're begging for these big numbers, and it's so accessible to acquire these big numbers while working in India. It's what drew me to the organization I work for, beyond the work that they do. And so VFF, we work primarily in education, sustainable agriculture, health programs, and rural infrastructure throughout Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. We have a very similar model to my neighbor here, where everything we do is led by the community. So what the community asks for is exactly what we do, which can be kind of difficult to match up traditional donors to those projects. But it's been really fun because we do a lot of work in kind of matching people. I feel a little bit like I run a dating website sometimes, finding people who want to do a very specific project and other people who want to do that same exact project. And so that's kind of the joy of my work, is finding these perfect marriages across donors and partners in India who can help everybody achieve their same, very similar goals. And I think that's probably all I'll say for now and pass the mic off to my friend. But thank you all so much for having me here, and I'm excited to join you for this conversation.
Yeah, I think it should be on.
I guess I need the other mic. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Puneet Ahluwalia, and I want to thank my friend Asif for inviting me to this great panel. And thank you all for taking time on a Saturday evening to come and listen to us, which is an important topic about giving. I look at just a little background about myself. I work with the Livingston Group. We are known lobbyists in Washington, D.C., and represent a few organizations. And one of them is dealing with charity or Sulabh International, which deals in building toilets in India. And rather than going in details what I do, it's more important that you get the meat, what you're here to listen to. Sulabh is a very unique organization. It builds toilet, and he's been doing it for the last 50 years. That's Dr. Madeshwar Pathak. What I feel is that the charities are so key to bridge the social gap that exists in India is so important. And as proud Americans or Indian Americans, I think it's the best way for us to deepen the US-India relationship by doing a strong US-India partnership through social, cultural, business exchange. We do the business aspect, but we don't take care of the social aspect and the cultural aspect. And I think that's the reason why it attracted me to work with Sulabh International, to really help to bridge that gap, because what he does is build toilets in villages, or especially in those minority communities which don't have toilets. For us, it's very easy. You go walk out and use the toilet. But imagine in a village, in the middle of the night or early morning, if you have to use bathroom, you really have to go wait at a certain hour for young boys or girls and parents to take advantage of that. So that's the reason why it was very unique. And then that's the other aspect, is that the dignity of the downtrodden in India, which was Mahatma Gandhi's dream and presently Prime Minister Modi's mission on Clean India, that's the other thing that attracted me to work and help use my relationships on the Hill, getting the leadership of the United States along with the various agencies which are working in India, the USAID or World Bank and IMF, who are focused on the WASH program, who are involved with the in the giving process, understand that WASH is a program which is done by USAID to focus on areas which are important to it. And then the third aspect, which was also attractive, is the US companies which are working in doing business in India. be it from GE, Pepsi, and Coca-Cola, and I know, Brajesh, I'm kind of diving into deeper, they are the ones who are already giving to these programs. So my focus is to work with these American organizations where the decisions are made here, to work with Sulabh or other agencies or other charities, which is a grand mission of the leadership of the United States, because that's where you will see the most tangible success and gain. So that's the goal, is to work with the leadership and private organizations and public organizations, which is a great P3 model, and translate that into India. And India is so ripe, and I'm going to take a little back step, for United States to have a good, stable, reliable partner in that region, which is the Indo-Asia Pacific region, no better than India. And that's the reason a stable, secure India, which is not only for defense partnership, but also for social, cultural, similar values, is so important for us. So hence, I'm involved in that. And with that, I give it back to Brajesh. Thank you.
Thank you, Puneet. I'll start with Jane. Jane, in India, I grew up there. The culture of philanthropy, rather what we heard when we were growing, it was more of charity. Now, I mean, with your experience, you worked with the Sehgal Foundation for quite some time. Is it a mainstream professional activity now? Is it being considered as a mainstream professional activity? Are those trends emerging?
Yes, I think what we see now is that donors,
Bring it a little closer. Yeah, sorry.
it seems like I'm about to eat it, but donors are wanting to know the results of their philanthropy. And
The
so
impact, as we would call it,
the
yeah.
impact, and so that causes a whole need for people who know how to study the impact to be involved, in addition to excellent grassroots workers who then, nowadays, excellent grassroots workers may be taught how to use tablets to take down information so that you can then evaluate things later with data. So yes, I do think it's professionalizing in some ways, yes.
And Angelina, before we came here to talk about this issue, we were talking about how VFF has been in India for 50 years with mixed experiences. What do you see changing, I mean, either for the good or for the bad, for that matter, when you actually travel to the remote areas and see, are there still bureaucracies? Is there a lot of red tapeism that you have to face, particularly when you want to help people?
I think VFF has a really interesting model. Although 90% of our funding comes from either Spain or the US to do our projects, we do have a very robust internal giving program. And there's this changing culture of philanthropy that's happening in the grassroots communities where we work. So because we've been in India now for 50 years, we've seen 3.6 million people's lives impacted over the course of our work, and among them we've had some amazing success stories, and those same people with their success stories are now giving back to our programs and investing in new projects for us, as well as even the community themselves, whether they've not quite achieved that success yet. We have a number of widows who are living on a pension who save just 1 rupee at a time in a piggy bank, and every year we break open these piggy banks on our organization's founding day, and we use that money for some of our projects to create this kind of culture of philanthropy in our India program, something that we're definitely seeing. And when it's people's money, they do put up a lot of red tape. They want to invest in things that make a difference in their lives, and they want to make sure they're getting the most out of that. But I think that red tape, that participatory methodology, is what makes things go a lot farther, a lot more sustainably. And so while yes, there's challenges to getting everyone to share an opinion and implement the same project and move forward together as a team, I think that's a worldwide phenomenon, not just something particular to India.
And Puneet, you interact a lot with the community, you interact with the corporate sector here. What are they telling you? And of course, we would also like your perspective in terms of that, how do you pitch to an American firm that India is a good destination for corporate philanthropy?
Great question. I think for us Americans, it's all about transparency. If you can see your dollars going in a rightful fashion and really changing lives and impacting lives in a positive way, that's the best way to do it. And I'll give you an example. I speak with example, it's much easier. At Sulabh, it costs you 40,000 rupees to build a toilet, and X percentage goes towards, let's say 15% of it goes towards for the management staff. Because I'll tell you a prime example, as she mentioned about grassroots. First is we honored President Trump by having a Trump village. And that was one aspect we did, is because we wanted to raise the profile of the importance of building toilets in India. It's so important that we get this thing done, especially by 2019 October. That's Gandhiji's birthday, 150 years. So we wanted to get the attention of these corporates and these things, but we also realized on the grassroots there was such a huge pushback because one, the collector of that area in Haryana had made that whole area as ODF free, which means it was already open defecation free because he had pocketed the money. And so that was one thing he did. So suddenly we make that village into that village needs 95 toilets, so that was against his focus. And then you had the local leadership, which was not BJP, which was, again, part of BJP's mission. They had to be involved. So the pushback you get not only from the bureaucracy, but also from the local leadership, which may not buy into your vision. So for us, to answer your question, everything has to work somewhat like a chorus, that it has to be impactful and help the people. But most important thing, what I say is, put your numbers on the website. So the leadership here, along with our US donors, or the donor base, or the philanthropic gentleman, whoever, or him, or like Kiran Patel, can see their dollar making a difference in people's life. So transparency is very key. And then important thing is to show every quarter the success you have done, what you have done, and then involve the media, involve the advisory board to be a spokesperson on those issues. So these are a few things which I suggest.
In fact, taking on from that point, another quick story which I heard from a journalist friend, and is a doctor and who wanted to set up a trauma center. He saw a very horrific sort of accident on Delhi roads. And this is the story of 2003. He met the Prime Minister. I want to set up a trauma center. He said, yeah, great idea, why not? Go ahead. He tried, the government changed. He tried with the next Prime Minister. And that went on for 8 years. And then there's a new government here. And he's still hopeful, but he's trying. Any of you might have had experiences if that thing is changing, particularly if an American firm that wants to put in money for the good of people, and if they would think, if this is the culture there, why should we even bother, you know? Or has that changed? Is there a dramatic change? I mean, and if you could take that.
Right. Well, first of all, I think all the international companies doing business in India, the major ones are doing sustainability reporting. They're reporting on how their activities affect the social, economic, environmental area where they're working. And so I think that is causing corporates to have very planful philanthropy. 2% CSR, of course, raised that issue a little bit more in India. The Companies Act, as I'm sure this audience probably knows, the Companies Act requires corporations with over a certain amount of assets or turnover or income to dedicate, according to a formula, 2% of something to CSR. Many of them are already doing it, the major companies. But yeah, it's a formula. It's a formula.
2% of the net profit.
There we go. Okay. But so that India is unique in having that, and yet the global reporting initiative that is having companies file sustainability reports was already engaging corporations on that issue. So that is a reinforcement. But I would like to tell one short story about what I see as one of the major things that corporations benefit from giving in India. And that is from one of our donors who fund school renovations, and they bring their staff to the inauguration of the new school, for example. And what one sees is excitement from the corporate staff, as well as excitement from the kids at the school and the community. It's highly motivating to have an inclusive community. So there is the potential for corporate philanthropy to just bring much more vitality to our civic interactions. And I think that's important. There may not be a price tag on that, but I think that's really important, and the company that funds this, I know, recognizes that.
Any of you would like to add before we open the floor to questions from the audience?
Jane, I would argue that there is actually a price tag to that. Millennials are more likely to not take jobs if they don't bring them joy. And so recruiting your younger and talented people, like, they will turn down a big piece of a nice salary. That's not what motivates them to take jobs. And I think it's true for a variety of generations, but I think there's a large population of millennials who are now a larger percentage of the population than the boomers. We're the largest group of people in the US who, that's our number one thing that attracts us to jobs. And as the US and India are each other's number one trading partners, it makes sense for companies to want to do social good and have social impact in India, because it not only creates great things in terms of impact, but it also is what attracts their millennial staff to want to stay in the positions. And there are more than 3 million Indian Americans here in the US, and many of them are some of our entrepreneurial leaders. And so attracting as well that talent to corporations is a very important aspect of being a successful business. And so in order to have a successful business, there is a price tag, and that price tag is that you have to do something good like this. And VFF offers, similar to your organization, wonderful corporate responsibility programs where we have mentors from a variety of companies helping our youth, and who are able to travel there and travel for change instead of just for business, or to travel on an alternative vacation, and we'll host people as well. And we've seen that that's a value that nonprofits are able to give to companies that's far beyond the actual check writing.
Thank you.
Can I add a little bit to that?
Yes, please.
Your question was engaging the opposition. I think I truly believe in engaging in democracy, engaging all parties which handle the reins of democracy. Hence, when I hosted Rahul Gandhi last month, I did ask him about his support on Sulabh. And he was saying, look, we worked with them before, and my grandmother worked with Sulabh. So the idea is having a buy-in is very important, and I'll give you the reason why. Because when American companies are doing business in India, we don't want to have a pushback when there's a regime change, which eventually does in any democracy does. So we don't want to start our relationship from zero with the opposition. Hence the reason whenever US leadership is going to India, I always advise them, meet the opposition either in the state or in the federal level. So that's one thing is very important. The other thing which I also mentioned is that on certain programs, be it in Sulabh, but then I'm going to make a pitch for another one, which is Rally for Rivers. Sadhguru is doing a phenomenal job. In fact, is about cleaning Ganga. What they've done is, because Ganga kind of flows from many states, and what they've done is they found a way how they can clean Ganga and get the buy-in from the leadership, from all the chief ministers, along with the bureaucrats to clean the Ganga, and there are people who are working with them. I happen to be one of them. So this is the reason why this is so important, that buy-in from the opposition and the various facets, which is the grassroots, the bureaucrats, the ministers, who have to buy in the opposition side. Because when you're doing good, it's across party lines. That's my little view.
Thank you. I mean, I still have loads of questions, but Venki had already warned me, stop being a journalist there. I mean, let people ask their questions. So if you could introduce yourself and ask your questions to our panel here.
Good, we did a
Who
good
would
job.
like to start?
Any question, anything? Pratik?
We could use this, yeah?
So, you want a easy question or a controversial one?
Controversial things.
Okay,
It'll
controversial.
make the headlines.
Yeah, the headlines, of course. So, what's up with Hinduism? That's the controversial question. So, Christianity, the Bible says, give 10%, and I've researched this, by the way, and that's why I ask if somebody has an answer. Islam, the Quran says, give 2.5% of your net worth after expenses. So it's a nice mathematical formula you have to go through. And Sikhism says give 10%. But the Sikhs like to spend money on alcohol and milk, so whatever is left, I guess. So we got Quran 2.5%, we got the Bible at 10%, Sikhism says 10%. But Hinduism, I have looked and looked and looked. I mean, it says donation and all of that, but seriously, I'm wondering have any of you ever come across any amount in any Hindu religious literature?
That's Mr. Navneet Chud. You will hear from him later.
Anyone wants to, anyone a religion expert here? I thought it was more about philanthropy, but
I think what I would like to answer is I think giving is a personal thing. And I just heard Kiran Patel gave $200 million, and I think he's a Hindu. So I think that's, I look at it's a very personal thing. And as a Sikh, I don't give it 10%. I think I'm more of an American spiritual. So giving is a personal thing. So I don't want to put any religion at a spot because I'm a proud Indian and I'm proud from my heritage and the religions which have inspired many. So with that, I guess I'll let her take on the question.
also, when Birla's, the kind of setup they started in India, they were among the first contributors. And Godrej, different religion, Azim Premji, different religion. So, so I don't think we can really put fingers on one particular religion as such. But yeah, please.
The only thing I'd add is a book actually called Dan, D-A-A-N, written by someone I know, and it really recaps a history of religious traditions and giving. So I'd be happy to, I have your card, I'd be happy to send you a link to that book. I think you'd find it of interest. Thank you.
I want to give a short answer. In Isavasya Upanishad, it says, Tena tyaktena punchitaha. That means you have to give unless it hurts you. It's not percentage, so you give what is the excess. It says you give unless it hurts you. That's one. And second thing in Chaya Parva, it says that people give for 4 reasons. One, for earning punya, good deeds; prayachita, removing bad deeds; karuna, compassion; 4th is aparigraha, but means non-accumulation of wealth, because accumulation of wealth itself can create a disease. So it says for 4 reasons it's given, and when it is given, it should hurt you. Until that much it should be given. That's what's stated in Hinduism.
Yes, please.
I'm Sudhir Seksaria. I work with Ekal Vidyalaya and also the API. One of the major concerns that Indians in this country have is, how do they know what is happening to the money that they give? Whenever we approach for Ekal or any entity for that matter, with the extreme levels of corruption that's built into the Indian system, and maybe also the NGOs in that respect, the people just have a lot of anxiety that is our money going to go to the right place, or is it going to get utilized within the infrastructure of the organization itself? That happens in this country as well, where 50, 60, 70% money gets used in running the entity. So that is of a major concern, and how does one address it in a very reliable fashion, when you are running your own entity. Let's say Puneet is talking of Sulabh. Okay, if I give money to Sulabh, how much of the money actually goes into the service?
Thank you. Jane, would you like to take that? Sorry, you want? Okay.
I can respond to that. That's a very good question. In fact, that's on every giving person who gives money or gives any kind of time also wants transparency. Hence the reason why I said is, that if you put your numbers, who gives what and how much, and that's the reason why Sulabh is one of the great organizations, which I like is the transparency that exists, is that it costs us $40,000 and we charge 15% or X percentage for running the operation, because you have to pay the fees for that. And especially in the non-profit world, where I've been involved by being on boards, the soft money is one of the hardest money to get, which means people who are going to write you open check because they believe in your cause. So that's one aspect. And the other thing which I also recommend to, as these organizations in India become far more successful, I'm going to share another example of Sulabh. It's microfinance. What Dr. Pathak has done is everybody who uses a toilet pays 5 rupees. And now he has 8,500 toilets in the entire India at this point, and his aim is to build more. And that's the reason we are able to build toilets on our own dime, is because he's created that microfinance. So it's very important for sustainability. That's important to get that soft dollars for these non-profit organizations to do that. I completely agree on transparency, because that's what is the American firms looking for, that's what the donors in the United States are looking for, and that's what most non-profits should do that.
Thank you, Puneet. I mean, just as we are running out of time for this session, but one last very quick question, and if you could all three of you respond to it in one sentence each. I know it's a tough one. Coming back to the topic of discussion, how to frame the pitch to an American firm that about supporting causes in India. What would be your top line if you had to pitch to an American firm?
Look at the population size. Think of how your business can connect with that population. You need friends in India. It's important to have a healthy and educated population to bring growth for everyone.
Thank you. Angelina, please. I know it's a tough one, but
I'd like to think I customize it for every corporation, right? So it makes sense for them. But the one that I find myself repeating the most often is that it's an opportunity to invest in their own business. So we have some great programs that can train their future employees. And so finding this way to not only be able to give to a cause that's really great, that also benefits your business, that it can be beneficial for their business, and crafting a custom program for them that makes sense for them as a company as well as for the community.
Thank you. Puneet?
One thing is understand the system, because it's non-profit is a business, so you have to think of it as a business, or hire the best and the experts in the field. When I made my pitch to the people in the U.S. corporation is focused on the companies who are focused on the WASH program, which is water, sanitation, something like that. So I focused on companies in India who are focused in that arena, or for example, if you look at a technology company, they'll be looking for kids in the education arena. So you identify your client or your donor in regards to the focused area he or she wants to be. So I focused about 10, 12 US companies in India who wants to give and should give. So what I've done is basically in the areas they're working, or the states they're working in, or the contract or the project they won, like for example, GE just won the contract for building railways. So you look at those aspects, and then plus at the same time, look at the defense companies. So look at the areas they're going to influence, and around that area, you go after their dollars and cents. 2%, imagine India's trade is from 120 billion is going to go to $200 billion. Imagine the 2% that is involved. Hence the reason, be smart, be precise, get it on one pager, and there are CSR heads. You go meet them and tell them what your mission is. Be open and transparent, and you get the money. Simple.
Thank you very much, Jane, Angelina, Puneet. Thank you so much for finding time on a Saturday evening. And that concludes this session, and I'll hand it over to Venki.